Swaddy Cup. This is Crew Jonathan over at Pu'u Muay Thai. Thank you for checking out this video. So today, we're going to cover this question right here. Is Muay Thai different from kickboxing? So this is a question that I get asked a lot. Running a Muay Thai academy, you see people punching, you see people kicking. The untrained eye, yeah, Muay Thai might look like kickboxing. Like, well, is that just a fancy word for kickboxing? Well, some might agree with you. If you actually know about the art of Muay Thai, us being a Muay Thai academy at Pu'u Muay Thai, what the difference is between Muay Thai and kickboxing. So let's start with first. The term kickboxing became very popular back in the 70s when you see these guys in these long pants. Yeah, these guys. Practicing punching, kicks. It was something totally new. We saw stuff like Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, all these action stars that were coming out. And a lot of people were very pumped about it. We'll back up a little bit. There was a Japanese boxing promoter that went to Thailand on vacation. And while he was in Thailand, of course, if you've been to Thailand, you'll understand. He ended up at one of the boxing stadiums as a tourist. Lo and behold, a Muay Thai fight happening. That Japanese boxing promoter actually saw Muay Thai and thought, hey, this is very unique. You know, they wear boxing gloves, they're in a ring. It looks very similar to boxing. He was like, hey, this would be really great to bring back to Japan. But maybe a little bit violent for Western tastes. What he decided to do is said, hey, I'm gonna get rid of the elbows they use in Muay Thai and the knees they use in Muay Thai. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it so they can only kick above the waist. They have to kick a certain amount of times. He decided that he was gonna have punches and kicks above the waist only. Body heads exposed, you can punch and kick it. They're still wearing boxing gloves. Once he brought it back to Japan, Muay Thai is a cool name, but this is not Muay Thai. We'll call it kickboxing. Lo and behold, that's how the term kickboxing came to be.
I'm an athlete, so I rarely drink. Kickboxing. I heard of kickboxing, sport of the future.
That was something that was brought over to the West, into the United States, into kickboxing promotions. And you've even seen like a modern day evolution of kickboxing through organizations like Glory, through 1FC, Bellator. And there were some other notable ones too, such as K1. They were like the really big kickboxing organization that was in Japan. Actually, for a while, almost allowed full Muay Thai rules, especially then in K1. But I know for sure they were allowing clinching. They had more than 3 rounds, and they've basically condensed it over a period of time. Now, kickboxing's 3-round fight. They could punch, kick, and they can low kick. So they can kick below the waist. So it's evolved to where they can do kicks below the waist and stuff too. They can also use their knees now as well. And in K1, they allow them to do a one-handed clinch. In other rule sets, they allow some modified clinch with like where you're grabbing the head and you can clinch for a certain amount of time as long as you're active, etc., etc. In Muay Thai, clinching is going to be used more as a tactic to throw off balance your opponent, strike them with knees, strike them with elbows to control them. So it's not going to be used like in a way that's going to be very similar to kickboxing. As these organizations evolved over time, that became very, very popular. Kickboxing had such a leg up and time to develop as a term in the Western mind of what kickboxing should look like. So then you have Muay Thai. So Muay Thai is still that dark shadow, right? It never really got its time. By the time it was introduced into Japan, into China, into the US, a lot of the martial artists didn't see it as a martial art. They said, hey, this isn't martial art. This is street fighting. You know, elbows, you can knee to the head, all this stuff. This just savagery. And I mean, there's some merit to it because Muay Thai is one of the only martial arts that developed on the battlefield of Thailand. You have to give them some credit for that. It's very direct, right? Main difference between Muay Thai and kickboxing are the weapons that are allowed to be used inside of a competition, as well as how the art was formed. So kickboxing was formed directly for sport through a Japanese boxing promoter in Thailand, whereas Muay Thai was developed on the battlefield of Thailand as a savage to be able to defend your land. This is something that kind of gets lost in modern day breakdowns of the art. You hear stuff, you hear Joe Rogan, he talks about Muay Thai.
Muay Thai, for whatever reason, I mean, you go to Muay Thai events and they're rabid and it's like a very deep community of people that really understand and appreciate the sport.
Yeah.
And they'll play the Thai music and they wear the Mong Kong on their head. They bow to their trainer
little
and
thing
they go
on
out
their
there
bicep,
and
yeah.
they're fucking throwing elbows and smashing and kicking
Yeah.
legs, and it's amazing to watch.
Same thing as kickboxing, more or less, Muay
It's
Thai?
the hardest. It's the hardest
It's
of all of them.
More
because
elite version of kickboxing, you're
yeah,
saying?
because it's elbows and knees and a lot of clinch work and a lot of dumping where they trip you and slam you to the ground, and they kick you on the way down too. They'll like if they'll throw you into the ropes, and if you're still on your way down, you get punted in the head.
Yeah.
You know, the other UFC commentators talking about how somebody has proficient Muay Thai striking. Very rarely do you actually see real Muay Thai on TV today. There are some promotions. I've talked about them on one of my YouTube videos about where to watch live Muay Thai, and I highly suggest you guys go check that out, especially if you guys want to watch real Muay Thai. But this is something that's starting to grow more and more steam, even though that it's being referenced by Joe Rogan and UFC. People want to find out more, like, oh, Muay Thai with the elbow and you can knee. It's not just kickboxing. So it's something that's allowed the sport to grow a little bit more. Not only this, but the scoring system in the sport version of Muay Thai is a lot different than kickboxing. The biggest, like, not the biggest, but the greatest analogy I've heard for it is, you've heard of the sports badminton, right? Have you heard badminton? They have like the long rackets, they have the super high nets. So, and then you have tennis, obviously. Tennis nets are a little bit lower, rackets are bigger. And they look very similar, but what they hit is different and how they score is different. So you're seeing this comparison between Muay Thai and kickboxing is very much like the comparisons between badminton and tennis. The two completely different sports. Okay, two completely different sports. When you go to compare the two, there is really no comparison. They're two different sports. They're very similar. All right, you're hitting something with a racket. Okay, in Muay Thai, you're punch and kick somebody, and kickboxing you can punch and kick somebody and now knee somebody. And Muay Thai can knee somebody, but in Muay Thai you can also elbow and you can also clinch. All right, it's encouraged. The scoring is fundamentally different in Muay Thai and kickboxing as well. In Muay Thai, there's actually only one true way to block a kick according to Muay Thai technique, and that's with your shin. You know, if you guys have seen a lot of these shin conditioning videos, these Japanese and Chinese people kicking poles and all this crazy stuff. You know, a lot of it's for show. And you'll see Muay Thai fighters, you know, they just condition their shins by kicking bags, kicking pads, fighting, and sparring. In kickboxing, they can block on their arms. So anytime a strike hits the arm in kickboxing, it's considered a block. So if somebody kicks and I block it with my arm like this, that's considered a block. It doesn't really score. You made an active target, all right? If I kick you here and then you kick and you miss, of course the one that kicks and hits somebody is going to be a little bit higher on the point system, right? But in Muay Thai, the scoring system is based on first on damage. So the thing is, if I'm getting kicked here over time, I mean, you've seen people's arms break before. Oof, some nasty arm breaks out there. So when you see an arm break, that's damage. All right. Yeah, of course, in kickboxing, if they break their arm like this, yeah, they can KO them or TKO them. But in Muay Thai, if somebody blocks like this, that's not a real block. You have to block with your shin. Another thing that you're going to see is effectiveness of striking. So like an elbow is going to cut, the damage that you cause the person. Okay, so that's one of the bigger keys of it. As well as, like, you see sweeps. It's like more showmanship, showing a balance and stuff like that too. In kickboxing, they don't really score on the balance. All right. One of the scoring criteria in Muay Thai is balance. Okay, not so much in kickboxing. Of course, you want to show good technique in kickboxing, but they're going to have more of like a machine gun approach because they're trying to tag them more as opposed to inflicting more damage. Of course, they're going to cause damage. There's some great people that have done both Muay Thai and kickboxing. People that started in Muay Thai, then went to kickboxing, and people that started in kickboxing, that went to Muay Thai. They're both very effective. Okay, so it's not a debate about which one's better. It's, are they the same? Answer to that question is no, they are definitely not the same. Let's recap real quick. Muay Thai developed during a time of war in a country, and kickboxing was made for sport. And then the scoring system in Muay Thai is different than in kickboxing. Along with that, the idea and the concept of training and the effectiveness of what you're going to train is going to be different in Muay Thai as opposed to kickboxing. It's very important for us to understand that when we're talking about it. It's a question we get asked about a lot. And I hope this video better educates you guys out there. So while you're out there, you guys may have seen these awesome shirts. Muay Thai is not a crime. It's first time during shutdowns. A lot of Muay Thai academies around the world are closed. It is being deemed as illegal to train. So we made these awesome shirts. The Muay Thai is not a crime. It's based on the old skateboarding is not a crime design using the old stencil. For me, seeing that in California growing up, I think is really fitting for this time. But this is actually brought to you by our clothing brand, pmtlifestyle.com. So PMT Lifestyle, it's a lifestyle brand that we started as a way during shutdown to make more merchandise, or a reason to make more merchandise for you guys, for people who like Muay Thai, all right? Or people are finding this video like, what's the difference between Muay Thai and kickboxing? Well, you just found out, and guess what? Muay Thai is pretty badass. So definitely go check out the store, guys. I have the link down in the description. Also, don't forget to subscribe. All right, definitely hit that subscription button, guys. Check out our Muay Thai live stream if that's up. It's definitely one of the best places you can watch a ton of authentic Muay Thai from around the world. Fighters from Thailand, all over the US, UK, Mexico, South America, Asia, everywhere. All right. But with that said, I hope everybody out there enjoyed the video. And stay tuned. We got plenty more stuff coming your way. So, Sawadee Kap.